Up next on the broadcast, President Park Geun-hye visits Canada to sign the Korea-Canada Free Trade Agreement and engage in a diplomacy of knowledge in the areas of energy, science, and Arctic studies. Ahead of the UN Climate Summit in New York, hundreds of thousands of people worldwide took to the streets to call on world leaders to cut carbon emissions and stop climate change. In the continent's biggest sporting event, the 17th Asian Games, South Korea continues adding medals to its count, including a gold medal in the women's 25-meter pistol team event. Primetime News begins now.
Welcome to Primetime News, live from Seoul. I am Kang.
And I'm Sean Lim. Great to see you. We begin with President Park Geun-hye's state visit to Canada, where she received a warm greeting from the country's Governor General.
And the highlight of the visit will come on Monday, when the two countries will officially sign a bilateral free trade agreement. Our presidential office correspondent Choi You-sun files this report from Ottawa.
With excitement and eagerness, I look forward to speaking with you, to reminiscing about our Korean experiences, and to learning how we can help each other to further succeed. Welcome to Canada.
The Governor-General of Canada, the viceroy to Queen Elizabeth II, who visited Seoul last year for President Park's inauguration, said Canadians are passionate about sharing their knowledge and expertise. He said there still was room for the two sides to work together in what he often refers to as diplomacy of knowledge, something that involves the sharing of information and creativity through people-to-people exchanges. President Park pinned high hopes on Seoul and Ottawa's soon-to-be-signed trade pact that it will upgrade their partnership to one that has shared goals, not just benefits, such as international peace and co-prosperity.
내일 서명하게 될 한 캐나다 FTA는 양국 간 협력 잠재력을 극대화하는 새로운 동력이 될 것입니다.
The FTA will remove tariffs on 99% of traded value in the next 10 years, and it's expected to raise Korea's GDP by 0.04% over the same period. Keeping momentum from the trade pact, Korea hopes to expand cooperation with Canada in areas of energy, science, and Arctic studies. The FTA, after it's signed on Monday, will be sent for parliamentary approval in both countries. Choi You-sun, Arirang News, Ottawa.
And following her state visit to Canada, President Park will be flying over to New York for the UN Climate Summit, where world leaders are set to discuss the threat of global warming. And ahead of their talks, people from around the world took to the streets in that city, demanding action before it's too late. Kim Min-ji has the details.
Hundreds of thousands of people worldwide took to the streets on Sunday to call on world leaders to act to cut carbon emissions and stop climate change. The People's Climate March, which was held in over 160 countries, comes ahead of the UN Climate Summit in New York on Tuesday. Protesters carried sunflower signs and held up posters and banners that demanded action.
I think it sends an incredible message, and it's a very powerful one, that people really should be taking climate change seriously, because we have we're at a very unique point in history in which we can actually tackle this problem right now and get ahead of it rather than wait another 15 years and let it overtake us.
Well, we as a nation are one of the biggest polluters of carbon. We have to ratify the treaty. The last time we didn't do it. The time before we didn't do it. We need to ratify a treaty that cuts our carbon in the atmosphere.
Organizers say some 300,000 people joined in a march in New York, including UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, former U.S. Vice President Al Gore, and actor Leonardo DiCaprio, in what was the largest protest ever on the issue. The UN chief, who was wearing a T-shirt that read, "I'm for climate action," told reporters that this was the planet in which future generations will live and there is no Plan B or Planet B. Large rallies also took place in Australia and Europe. Organizers in Australia said as many as 30,000 participated in Melbourne rallies as the country faces severe droughts, bushfires, and storms, while some 40,000 marchers are said to have showed up in London. Tuesday's summit will bring together 125 heads of state with the hope of signing a universal agreement by the end of 2015. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Over in North Korea, the regime is sending stronger than usual warnings to the south to stop flying anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border. Experts say there might be a reason as to why Pyongyang is being extra sensitive about this issue this time around. Son Jung-in tells us more.
North Korea has taken issue with the cross-border spread of anti-Pyongyang leaflets by civic groups a month after it remained tight-lipped on South Korea's proposal for high-level inter-Korean talks. The North is demanding such provocations be halted if Seoul wants to resume inter-Korean dialogue. It went on to threaten a possible retaliation, saying the leaflets are a more grave provocation than shooting and shelling. The anti-Pyongyang leaflet campaign, waged by civic activists, mostly North Korean defectors in the South, has been going on for years despite calls from other activists for them to stop. The balloons flown into the North are known to be well liked by North Koreans because they contain $1 bills, medicine, and other daily necessities, along with hundreds of thousands of leaflets denouncing the three-generation power transfer in the North. Experts say the North is reacting strongly now, mainly because the leaflets criticize its political system and its young leader Kim Jong-un. Others say it's using the situation as a means to pressure the South.
North Korea views its system and dignity as its top priority, so that's why they are showing a very strong reaction. But we also need to consider the possibility that the North is taking advantage of the situation to put more pressure on the South.
Although there has not been any serious reaction from the North, experts believe inter-Korean ties are not likely to improve anytime soon. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
In this week's Industry Insight, we're profiling Korea's #1 automaker. Hyundai Motor may be struggling a bit, though, in terms of recent stock performance as well as profitability, with the strong Korean won and high cost for its fight for its U.S. market share. But this automaker is bearing the cost for now and betting even more for its goal of becoming a premium brand. Our Song Ji-sun reports.
This is a crossroad in Seoul's rich and hip Gangnam-gu district, where imported car showrooms are peppered along the street. Just across Mercedes-Benz and BMW, Hyundai Motor recently opened its first brand exhibition gallery called Motor Studio, underlining the Korean automaker's ambition to upgrade its brand image. Hyundai's premium sedan model, the Genesis, is rotating on a wall, showcasing its platform. The launch of this brand gallery underscores Group Chairman Jung Mong-gu's ambition to brand Hyundai Motor as a premium automaker. Hyundai has been struggling in the U.S. market this year, losing ground to Japanese automakers, which have benefited from a combination of the weakened Japanese yen and discount promotions. Hyundai aims to counter by emphasizing its high-end line of automobiles, something it hopes will boost its brand image and ultimately sales across the board. Early signs are encouraging in the all-important U.S. market. The automaker's overall market share in the U.S. is in the mid-4% range, but its share in the luxury car market was at nearly 7% last year. Hyundai aims to push that mark to 8% by the end of this year. If the goals are achieved, the new Genesis sedan will be the reason. It's the focal point of the company's strategy in the United States. Hyundai says the sedan's performance is on par with BMW 7 Series, but is priced about 10% lower than its targeted competition, the BMW 5 Series. Sales of Genesis in the U.S. more than doubled in June from the beginning of this year after launching the new model. That boosted the sales portion of mid to large-size sedans from 53% last year to 56% by end of July. But experts say Hyundai has a long way to go before it can sell itself as a high-end automaker.
It marks only the beginning for Hyundai's challenge to become a premium brand in all aspects. For instance, when BMW launches its new 5 Series, they improve a lot on the performance by reducing its weight by at least 100 kilograms and enhancing its output by 15%. Hyundai must focus on competency when launching new models, as they seem to lack that improvement with heavier weights and less fuel efficiency.
And those same rules apply in the domestic market, where combined shares of Hyundai and Kia Motors at home last month dipped below 70% for the first time in 7 years, as more consumers turn to German diesel models with higher fuel efficiencies. 송지선, Arirang News.
And here's a data point that will back up what Ji-sun was just talking about. The number of imported cars in Korea surpassed the 1 million mark last month, according to the Korea Automobile Manufacturers Association. That accounts for 13% of Korea's total market share. The Auto Association attributes this growth to the rising number of fuel-efficient foreign models and the narrowing price gap between foreign and domestic cars. Curry's comments came in response to
your gateway to the day's biggest stories in Korea and around the world. Breaking news, the hottest interviews, and a whole lot more. Join Arirang Sean Lim and Kang Chery from the heart of Seoul.
Begins now.
Primetime News, weeknights, live at 10 on Arirang TV.
The International Telecommunications Union meeting, otherwise known as the ICT Olympics, will begin in Korea's southern port city of Busan in about a month's time. And it's been said that the high-profile event could shift how countries and people use and access the internet. Our Hwang Ji-ae has the details.
The countdown has begun. In less than a month, the 19th ITU Plenipotentiary Conference kicks off in Korea's southern port city of Busan. The ITU, or the International Telecommunications Union, is an information and communications arm of the United Nations. It sets technological standards, allocates radio frequencies and satellite orbits, and works to improve the quality of communication services. And for the meeting, some 3,000 government delegates from the ITU's 193 member states will participate, along with some 150 information and communications technology ministers and high-level officials. It's the first time Korea will host the ITU conference that takes place every 4 years, and the second time in Asia after Japan hosted it in 1994.
So it's a very good opportunity for our countries to make our role as the global leading country in the field of the ICT global policy making and the global diplomacy.
Korea wants to discuss Internet of Things and ICT convergence, both of which are closely linked to the government's creative economy drive. The ICT ministry believes the global event will lay the foundation for the country's communication industry to reach the next level and raise Busan's exposure on the world stage. Hwang Ji-ae, Arirang News.
The smartwatch market is expected to take a giant leap forward in the next couple of years. IT research firm Gartner predicts that smartwatches will account for 40% of all consumer wrist-worn devices by the year 2016. The firm forecasts that consumers will start showing more of an interest in smartwatches when the Apple Watch hits the market next year. It also points to China's growing presence in the industry as a factor, especially once they begin to flood the market with more affordable models. However, Gartner did point out one challenge that smartwatch developers will have to overcome: battery life of the gadgets.
Korea's Google, or Naver, says there will be no IPO this year for its Japan-based affiliate Line. Naver says Line, which operates a popular messaging app in the same name, is considering going public in the U.S. and Japan, but that now is not the optimal timing for an IPO. This comes 2 months after Naver said it was considering overseas stock market listing. Launched over 3 years ago, Line says it now has more than 500 million subscribers worldwide. And the latest crisis to hit the Middle East, the Turkish government has begun clamping down on its border with Syria following the mass exodus of Kurdish refugees from the war-torn region.
With more, we turn to Paul Yee at the News Center. Paul, we've seen a surging number of refugees flood into Turkey, most of them said to be fleeing from the violence spreading across northern Syria.
And that's likely due to clashes between IS militants and Kurdish forces having intensified this past week, with fighting focused near the town of Kobane. And the latest figure puts more than 130,000 Syrians crossing into Turkey in just the last 3 days. In order to stem the movement of Kurdish fighters, Turkish authorities closed 7 out of the 9 border posts in the area. However, they remained open for women, children, and the elderly. The UN Refugee Agency expects even more civilians to escape across the border in what has become the largest exodus since Syria's civil war began more than 3 years ago.
We're approaching in Turkey 1.6 million refugees, and now over 100,000 influx, and quite frankly, we don't know when those numbers will end. We need assistance for core life-saving support.
The Turkish government says it's taking all necessary measures to prepare for the surge of displaced civilians. However, emergency officials say their supplies are running out. The UN agency has reiterated its call for more humanitarian assistance, as it's so far received less than a quarter of an estimated $500 million needed to tackle the refugee crisis. And in Hong Kong, thousands of students there have launched a massive pro-democracy rally against the Chinese government, demanding greater democratic freedoms for the former British colony. Students, academics, and faculty members from 24 university and colleges are taking part in this week-long boycott of classes, which comes ahead of a showdown with Beijing on October 1st. Organizers say some 13,000 people took part in the peaceful protest on this Monday at the Chinese University of Hong Kong.
I believe on August 31st, when the National People's Congress made their decision, it crushed the dreams of some people in Hong Kong who have been fighting hard for democracy for the past 30 years.
In the coming days, they plan to expand their campaign of civil disobedience across the city, including a mass protest in the downtown financial district in what is being called Occupy Central. And the Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba has shattered world records after going public on the New York Stock Exchange this past Friday. Alibaba's initial public offering now stands as the biggest in history at $25 billion. An overwhelming demand saw its IPO initially raise about $22 billion and have its debut on Wall Street. However, an additional sell-off by shareholders sent Alibaba's stock surging 38% to nearly $94 per share. However, market watchers say that trading frenzy has been fueled by investors seeking short-term gains, which will eventually cool off.
There will be a corrective process after the share price jump. In addition, those institutions that have been allocated some IPO shares will likely cash in their profits after their lockup periods expire. As such, I believe it is in a process of surging, correcting, and stabilizing. For now, the share price seems unlikely to fall below $70.
The world's largest IPO, however, did little to lift shares in Asia's major markets on this Monday, as investors wait for more data this week on the economic slowdown in China, which will play a crucial role in Alibaba's future prospects. And finally, the U.S. space firm SpaceX has successfully launched a rocket from Earth, kicking off its 2-day mission towards the International Space Station. Following days of bad weather, SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket finally got a chance to blast off from Cape Canaveral in Florida on Sunday. 10 minutes later, the Dragon cargo capsule was released, and it's now on its way to the ISS. Its mission will be to transport equipment and supplies, including a prototype 3D printer and 20 live mice for experiments. Last week, SpaceX had won a second contract to provide so-called commercial taxi services for NASA astronauts in a deal worth up to $2.6 billion. And that wraps up our look at international stories making headlines around the world. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello and good evening. I'm Stephen Che with your Asian Games wrap-up for Tuesday, starting with judo. It's the women's under 78 kilo final with South Korea's Jeong Gyeong-mi on the mat. She faced off against Arirang of North Korea in the All-Korea final, and there Jeong, ranked 6th in the world, took down the 2013 world champion judoka in several well-thought-out moves to defend her Asiad gold and win South Korea's 4th medal in judo this year so far. And moving on to shooting, the South Korean ladies shook off the disappointing result from Saturday to earn the first gold of the Asiad, or rather their first gold of the Asiad. They started the day with a bronze in the team 10-meter air rifle, but got the much-needed gold later in the day, winning the 25-meter team pistol event. Unfortunately, Kwak Jung-hye went without a medal in the individual finals. Meanwhile, also in the morning, South Korea took down Myanmar in sepak takraw, a South Asian, or rather Southeast Asian sport, best described as kick volleyball. Unfortunately, South Korea lost in straight sets, 19-21 and 18-21, earning their second silver in a row. Meanwhile, more event updates. First in cycling track. It's a sport usually dominated by Japan, but the women's team pursuit finals had China taking on South Korea for the top spot. And there, China grew a 2-second lead in the first kilometer to an 8-second lead in the third, eventually overlapping Korea in the final lap. They set an Asian Games record of 4 minutes 33.064 seconds in the win as Korea got the silver. Meanwhile, to fencing, it was more South Korea versus China action in both the women's epee and men's foil individual finals. Unfortunately, Shinaram fell to Sun Yu-jie in the women's epee, and Heo-jun was outlasted by Ma Jian-fei, and both earned silvers for their country. And next up, badminton. In what's turning out to be a trend for both the men's and women's side, South Korea and China made it to the gold medal matches. But with the men's final on Tuesday, the women were in action on this Monday evening. And it's a big matchup, or rather was a big matchup, with South Korea taking on the 2010 winners China, who are making their 4th title defense. And the defending champs proved to be too strong, winning 3 straight matches. And the South Korean women get the silver there as well. And Asian Games baseball has begun with the group stages. Group B started the action. Chinese Taipei slammed Hong Kong 12-0 earlier in the day. Meanwhile, South Korea took on Thailand. For the game, which started at 6 p.m., or rather 6:30 p.m. in the evening, Kim Hyun-soo and Na Sung-bum started Korea off early, eventually making it 8-0 after the first inning. And South Korea made it a short one, winning 15-0 with the game called in the 5th inning due to the mercy rule. And real quickly, going to the pool, the South Korean men were able to pick up a bronze in the team 4x200-meter freestyle event as well. Well, that does it for me for now. This has been Stephen Che. I leave you with the medal standings and a look at Tuesday's schedule. Good night.
Hello, I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather updates. Let's begin in Incheon, where conditions will continue to be sunny with the mercury reaching a high of 27 degrees tomorrow. At the moment, we are enjoying clear skies due to a low pressure trough from a high pressure trough that is from the East Sea. The 16th typhoon Pungwang is currently passing waters 330 kilometers southeast of Shanghai, China, and should downgrade to a low pressure trough by Wednesday morning. Due to the typhoon, heavy rainfall and strong winds are in store for tomorrow and Wednesday. Up to 100 millimeters is expected for most regions and over 150 for the coastal regions. An umbrella is a must for tomorrow, and be extra careful out on the roads, as after the downpours, we'll return to typical autumn conditions for the rest of the week. Here are the readings for Tuesday. Seoul hits 29 degrees, Gwangju 26, Busan 25. On to other places. Daejeon and Jeju reach 26, Dokdo 22, Kumgang 24. That's all for now. I'll be back with more updates after midnight. See you then.
Thanks, Bo-kyung. That's Primetime News on this Monday night. I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for watching.
And I'm Kang. We'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.